Hello, bravs, we're back with Tried for Her Life by E.D.E.N. Southworth. Chapter 7, GENTILISKA, DUBARRY. And Iska's a lady. The girl went to a little trunk, unlocked it, and brought out the small silver casket. Why do I feel like this is blurry? I don't know. Don't care. Set up. Don't do any editing or anything, just have. The girl went to a little trunk, unlocked it, and brought out the small silver casket. She touched the spring, and the top flew open, revealing a packet of papers, from which she selected one brown with age and worn almost into squares by folding. She laid it before Sybil, who carefully unfolded it and scrutinized it. "There you see," said the lady at length, speaking in triumph. "There's the name of Philip DUBARRY, as plain as a proctor's clerk could write it. Not Dewberry, mind you, but DUBARRY. See for yourself." "So it is," exclaimed the girl in amazement. "Now, do you know, I never examined it so closely as to see the differences in the spelling of the name before. We were always called Dewberry, and Dewberry I thought we were." "No, you were and are DUBARRY, and in all human probability, the sole heiress of this great manor. Stop a bit. Oh, my eye. Oh, my nose. What's the matter? I smell a mice. What do you mean? Satan knows I am a princess in disguise, and that's the very reason why he wants to marry me. Please be clear if you can't be brilliant. Why, why, I'm Christopher Walken. Why? I'm as clear as mud. Satan has found out that I am the rightful heiress of the DUBARRY manor, and he wishes to make me his wife in order to become master of the estate," the girl explained. Sybil raised her eyes in surprise, then dropped them again upon the license and repeated, "So Satan wishes to wed you?" "You bet, and I never could imagine why a gentleman of his cultivated taste should want me for a wife." "Did he ever happen to see the marriage license?" "Oh, yes, he has seen it and studied it. He told me it was an important document and advised me to take good care of it." "Then that is probably the way in which he discovered your right to the DUBARRY estate." "And to be sure it was, for from the time he first saw that paper he began to treat me with more respect and attention, and I do believe that was also the reason why he came down to this place." While the girl spoke, Sybil was thinking hard and fast. Was the gentleman brigand and husband of Rosa Blondel? Had he deliberately murdered his wife that he might marry this young gypsy, heiress of the great DUBARRY manor? But the girl would not let the lady reflect in peace for many minutes. She suddenly broke out with, "I can't credit it, not even in the face of the facts. What, a poor little beggarly wretch of a half-breed gypsy like me, the sole heiress of an old aristocratic manor? Stuff and nonsense. Even if I have the right to it, I shall never get it." "Oh, yes, you will," said Sybil confidently. "I never heard of a clearer case than yours, as you have stated it. You have only to prove 3 marriages, 3 births, and 1 identity. And as marriages and births are always registered in your country, there will be no difficulty in that. Our marriages and births were always registered for the same reason that this license was kept, that some of us might come into the family fortune sometime and be made a lady or a gentleman of, and it begins to look like I was going to be the lady." "Well, but don't spoil your fortune by marrying Satan," said Sybil. "Marry Satan? I'd see him in pandemonium first," exclaimed the little student of Milton. "I'm glad to hear you say so. Keep to that, and get out of this den of thieves as soon as ever you can," added Sybil. "Now, may Satan fly away with me if ever I desert my friends. They risked their necks to rescue me from want in Dover, and have provided for me like a princess. If that's the way you good people requite kindness, I think I'll stick to my poor scamps. At least I will never leave them until I can give them each and all money enough to retire upon honestly." "But you will have to leave them before you can do that. You will have to live among law-abiding people before you can get a lawyer to take up such a case as yours. I think if ever I am free again, I would like to have you home with me, and I am sure my dear husband would take up your cause, as he has taken up that of many a poor client without money and without price." Here the girl burst into such peals of laughter that Sybil could but gaze on her in astonishment. "Oh, that is too good," exclaimed Iska, as soon as she recovered from her mirthful paroxysm. "What is too good?" inquired Sybil, slightly displeased. "Oh, that you should invite me to your house and recommend me to your husband's good offices. One would think that you have had enough of taking up stray women and flinging them at your husband's head," exclaimed the girl with another paroxysm of laughter. Sybil turned pale and remained silent for a few moments. Then she said very gravely, "Your gay rebuke may be a just one. I will think twice before I repeat the folly. And now I have lost a friend by my jest." "I am always losing friends by jest," said Gentiliska sadly. "No, indeed you have not, poor child," exclaimed our magnanimous Sybil. "I might think once or twice, but I should never think long without offering you a home in my heart and in my house. You are no saint, poor girl, but that you are an honest woman with your antecedents and your surroundings is as much to your credit, I think, as sanctity is to the most holy." And the lady arose and kissed the little gypsy. "That was good," sighed Gentiliska. "That is the first time I have ever been kissed since my poor mother died." They were interrupted by the apparition of Proserpine, who glided into the inner cavern. "What do you want?" demanded Gentiliska. "Nothing. Breakfast has been ready this half hour. We thought you were asleep, so we waited, but just now I heard you laughing, so I came in to tell you everything would be spoiled if you didn't make haste and get ready." "All right, we are ready. Put breakfast on the table directly," said Gentiliska. The girl disappeared, and two temporary companions, Sybil and Gentiliska, soon followed. They found a comfortable breakfast laid out in the kitchen, and as on the preceding morning, Sybil did justice to the delicacies set before her. "Where are your companions?" she inquired of Gentiliska, not seeing any sign of the robbers' presence. "I don't know. Where are the men? Hecate? Why do I not know that again? I forgot it. It's Hecate." "I don't know. Where are the men, Hecate?" inquired the hostess, turning to the crone. "Bless you, missus, as soon as they got through with their supper, which they kept up until midnight, they one and all put on their gowns and masks and started out on business." "Business? Yes, that means stopping a stagecoach or breaking into a house," sneered the girl. "And they have not got back yet?" she inquired. "Bless you, missus, too." "Bless you, missus, no. I sorter, kinder think as they've gone a good distance this time." Sybil said nothing, but she felt relieved and grateful to be rid of those terrible men, even for a few hours. When breakfast was over, Gentiliska said to Sybil, "You must not suppose that I live entirely underground, like a mole. No, indeed, every day when it is fine I go to the surface. I get out on the roof. I walk on the mountain heights, when never foot fell except my own. I went out yesterday and would have taken you, but that you were so dead asleep. Will you climb with me today?" "With great pleasure," said Sybil. "And while we go, we will take little baskets and some luncheon, and we will gather some nuts. There are so many on the mountain: walnuts, chestnuts, hickory nuts, hazelnuts, and chinkapins," added the young hostess as they walked back to the sleeping cavern, where they began to prepare for their ramble. "There, take that and wrap yourself up warm. I wish it was nicer, but I haven't a choice of garments here, you know." Sybil picked up the articles thrown her by her hostess, and saw, to her astonishment, that it was a priceless India shawl belonging to her friend Miss Pendleton. This," she exclaimed indignantly. "Do you know what this is?" "It is an old shawl," replied the girl contemptuously. "Yes, it is an old shawl, a rare old camel's hair shawl worth thousands upon thousands of dollars, an heirloom of the Pendleton family that has descended from generation to generation. Until now it is the property of Miss Beatrix Pendleton. Oh, I am so sorry she has lost it." "What, that old thing? I'm blessed if I didn't think it was a most uncommon, coarse, thick, heavy old brooch. It is a priceless India camel's hair shawl, such a one as could not be bought in this century at any price. Oh, I wish she had it back. Lord bless you, she may have it back if she wants it." "Why do you think they took it? For its value?" "They knew no more of its value than I did. No, they took it for its uses. They took it to tie up some of the silver plate in, because they hadn't sacks enough. You take it and keep it, and when you have a chance, give it back to your friend. But for today you had better give it an airing on your shoulders." So exhorted, Sybil wrapped herself in the costly shawl, and followed her hostess through many labyrinths of the caverns, until they came out on a lonely height, apparently yet untrodden by the foot of man. It was a clear, bright December day. The morning, if sharp and cold, was fresh and invigorating. They spent the middle of the day in rambling through the loneliest parts of the mountain fastnesses, and gathering treasures of many sorts of the sweetest nuts. The sun was sinking in the west when they turned their steps towards the caverns. The men will be sure to be home to supper. They never fail supper. And now we will be able to give them walnuts with their wine, said Gentiliska. As they re-entered the labyrinth, there again with those umlauts, the labyrinth that led them from the mountaintop to the caverns underneath. Sybil's heart shrunk within her. To the delicate and conscientious, there is always an exquisite torture in the immediate contact of the coarse and reckless. They reached the large cavern to find its walls brilliantly lighted up, and the supper table laid and well laden as on the preceding evening. Well, we will go to the sleeping cavern and lay off our bonnets and shawls. Then we will be ready for supper. Fortunately, we don't have to dress for the evening at our house, laughed the girl, leading the way to the little cave. When they had thrown off their wraps, they returned to the larger cavern to find it half full of the men. Supper was already on the table, and Satan, who was now in full evening dress, came forward and bowed to Sybil, and with much impressment led her to the place of honor at the board, and seated himself beside her. Moloch took a stool immediately opposite the pair, where he could gaze at will upon the new beauty. When all were seated, the feast began. Satan gave his whole attention to Sybil, whom he treated with tender deference. As the supper progressed and the wine passed around, the men, under the exhilarating influence, grew merry and talkative. Hope the Beaks'll have a good time up at the old haunted chapel today. This is the second day they've been looking for us. And oh, didn't they think they'd struck a rich lead when they found that swell Berners up there? They thought they had got his wife too, for certain. That's what brought them back today. They know they can't find us there, but they hope to find her, said one of the robbers. But his speech was not received with general favor. And when he stupidly pursued the theme, not understanding the menacing look of Satan, one of his companions dug an elbow in his side and called out, "Stow all that, you stupid donkey. Don't you see the lady you are talking about is at the table?" The rebuke was almost as bad as the offense had been, but it had its effect in silencing the talkative offender. But good humor was soon restored. The walnuts were placed upon the table with the dessert, and many compliments were passed upon the pretty hands that had gathered them for the feast. But just in the midst of their merrymaking, the whole party were startled by a tremendous explosion that seemed to shake the mountainside. All sprung to their feet and stood gazing in amazement at each other until the echoes of the thunder died away. There was silence for a moment after, and then Moloch suddenly burst into a peal of laughter, in which he was soon joined by all his companions, with the exception of Satan, who sat frowning upon them. "What is the meaning of this rudeness?" he sternly demanded. "Oh, boss, don't you know? We are laughing at the Beaks. They have blown themselves up in the old haunted chapel," answered one of the party. "Good heaven! A wholesale murder! I was not prepared for that," exclaimed the captain. "A wholesale murder on a wholesale accident, if you please, boss, but no murder. Nobody told them to take lights down into that vault where there was gunpowder lying around loose. And if the trap was set for one meddler and caught a dozen, why, so much the better, I say. And I don't think it could have caught much less than a dozen, seeing as there were about 15 or 20 men in the chapel when I spied it this afternoon from my cover in the woods on the mountain behind it, and I reckon there must have been more than half of them killed." "Hush," said Satan. "Don't you see that this lady is nearly fainting with terror?" Sybil was indeed as white as a ghost, and on the very verge of swooning, but she managed to command nerve enough to ask, "Can you tell me, was my husband in the chapel this afternoon?" "Oh, no, ma'am," answered the robber, who had immediately taken his cue from the glance of his captain's eye. "Oh, no, ma'am. I met him on his road to Blackville early this afternoon." This was partly true, for the men had really seen Lion Berners when he was walking along the river road to meet Joe. Sybil believed it to be wholly true and uttered an exclamation of thankfulness. The wine passed more freely, and the men grew merrier, wilder, and more uproarious. Sybil became very much alarmed, and not so much by the noisy orgies of these rude revellers as by the dreadful gaze of Moloch, fixed upon her from the opposite end of the table where he sat. in the offensive language of Satan's eyes whenever they turned towards her. At length, unable to bear the trial longer, she arose from her seat, and curtsying to these brigands, as she would have done to any set of gentlemen of whom she was taking leave, Sybil left the cavern, followed by Gentiliska. I must take you to another grotto. You cannot occupy mine tonight, said the girl, who, with evident reluctance, but oh, why? Why may I not stay with you? I am afraid to sleep alone in this terrible place, pleaded Sybil. I have a reason, but I cannot tell it to you now. Yes, I will too. I will tell you all at all risks. Then it is this. My chamber is no longer safe for you. I myself am not strong enough to protect you. You might be carried off forcibly from my side. I must hide you where no devil may find you tonight, whispered the girl. My blood curdles. Oh, help me if you can, cried Sybil. I cannot help you. I can only hide you. I could perhaps save you from insult by sober men, but who shall save you from maniacs mad with drink? Yet you have always saved yourself. How have you managed to do so? I have grown up among them, their child. That makes all the difference. Oh, heaven help me. Would I were dead, cried Sybil in an agony of terror. Oh, bosh, that's the cry of weakness. I've seen some hard times, but I never wished myself dead yet, said the girl as she led her guests through a labyrinth of small caverns until she reached one smaller and more remote than the others. Oh, do not leave me here alone, pleaded Sybil. If I must stay, stay with me. I do not fear death, but oh, I fear these men. Do not leave me. I must, for your own safety. They must not miss me, or their suspicions will be aroused. Then, pointing to a bed of moss and recommending her guest to lie down and seek repose, Gentiliska glided away through the labyrinth of caves and was lost to sight and hearing. Sybil's first impulse was to start up and run after her hostess, but she restrained herself and sank half fainting upon the heap of moss. There was but a faint sparkling of light in the cave, coming from a crevice in the roof, through which the moonlight entered, and glancing down, struck here and there upon the stalactites on the walls. Seek repose. Seek repose. Seek repose had been the advice of Gentiliska. Sybil dared not seek it if she could, and could not have found it if she had. She lay there with her eyes wide open, staring towards the entrance of the cavern, as if she feared the sudden apparition of some horrid shape. She lay there with every nerve strung up to the severest tension, and every faculty of mind and body on the alert. She scarcely breathed, but lay motionless and watched and listened intently. Hour after hour passed in this stern tension of her frame, this trance-like stillness and silence, when at length she fancied she heard a creeping, stealthy step approaching. Nearly frozen with terror, she listened and watched more intently than ever. Alone, helpless in darkness and solitude, what horrid fate must she meet? The creeping, cautious footsteps drew nearer, nearer. Oh heaven, it was no fancy. The entrance of the cavern was more deeply darkened for one moment, and then the huge form of Moloch stood within the cavern and nearly filled it up. Paralyzed with horror, Sybil could neither move nor cry out, not even when the monster approached the bed and put his profane hand upon her face. Don't touch my face. No, don't touch my face. All right, Bobs, I think that's all for this chapter. It is goodbye. Goodbye. Don't touch my face. Oh, God.